Well, hi everybody. We're here on the. I'm here on this beautiful island of Skye. I'll just let you have a quick look around. It's a bit blowy, a bit windy in here, so step back inside, and it's a bit sheltered out of the wind and the rain. So it's been a while since I was last speaking on a video. So there's obviously been some further developments, some more stuff filed by Zellner. She's keeping very, very busy, obviously, on this case, and no doubt there'll be more developments in the future. Let's hope so. And I saw a video this morning by Eric Ozzy, looking very smart, making me look a bit shabby with my t-shirt and my jacket. So I'll have to try and improve for next time. I'm glad you got the tie, and I think it's just symbolic of the fact that people throughout the world, I've met through Facebook and other media, people all throughout the civilized world who are absolutely horrified at what's being allowed to perpetuate over there in Wisconsin, and particularly in Manitowoc and under the roof of the Idiots Convention HQ there at the sheriff's office. Couple of things to talk about, really, that people have asked me about, and I just wanted to clarify. When I first got in touch with Robert, I mentioned before that he seemed completely blasé about making a murderer, which clearly hadn't been the case, but publicly he needed to put on this show of nothing was wrong, which does tend to strike me as being, they've done it before, they'll do it again if they have to. They don't have any sense of embarrassment whatsoever. Going right the way up the food chain, there is just no sense of embarrassment whatsoever. They think they've done it before, they'll do it again, and who's going to stop them? Well, hopefully a Zalami of much greater proportion than the wind blowing out there is going to be knocking that door down very soon. Well, it already is, of course, and it's going to wreak quite a bit of damage, as we've already seen, because whereas at one time it was a case of the sort of two sides were clearly defined, there seemed to be a bit of a grey area in the middle now, where because of the perjury by Brendan's brother, it could cause him a huge problem. You wonder what pressures he was put under, and by whom. This whole case, to me, it seems quite clear. A lot of people say, well, how can you have a conspiracy? You'd have to have so many people involved. Well, yes, of course you have lots of people involved, all doing their own little job. But who's pulling the strings? Who had the means to get all these different people to do the various aspects that they needed to do, often without any idea of what was going on with the others? It'll only be when Kathleen Zellner gets them all under one roof in one room that we're going to find out who did who and how it all linked together. But obviously there's no doubt that the former General Attorney was the puppet master pulling all the strings. That is abundantly clear because of the timing of Teresa's disappearance. As I say, when I spoke to Herman, he was so blasé about it. That's the only way I can describe it, and he always has been. He's always, as I say, struck me as being, he thinks that he can just fob people off with anything, and eventually they'll come around to his way of thinking, which isn't going to happen. Now, I did, as I say, speak to him starting off in March, April of 2016, all the way through till September. So there was a good 6 months when he was willing to take my phone calls and exchange, sent me 3 or 4 emails Nothing startling in the emails, but certainly the phone calls were interesting. Then one of the phone calls that he took off me, he said, "I don't wish to speak to you. You've called me a coward. You've called my department a coward. I don't want to speak to you." The reason I called him a coward, for various reasons. As I say, first of all, this complete lack of embarrassment, and just burying his head in the sand as if everything's going to be fine and everything's rosy and nothing's going to happen to him or his department. Certainly cowardice in the fact that when you've got your own office, you're defending your own officers who clearly planted the key and the bullet, and probably a lot of the other so-called evidence that was found. This. By the way, I often get this from people saying all the evidence points. Well, of course, all the evidence points toward. That's the whole point of framing somebody. You don't frame somebody by pointing all the evidence at somebody else. But this idea that it all fits. Well, of course, it all fits because that's the whole point of framing somebody. As I say, there was lots of people involved in this, all doing their own little bit to secure this false conviction. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But the quality of the framing is absolutely appalling. A bullet that never went anywhere near any bone fragment, any bones, because there's no bone fragment. There's just a bit of paint and a bit of wood on it. That's that clearly never hit anybody. And then found with no dust on it, and Stephen Brendan was so good at cleaning up a garage, and they failed to notice that bullet under the generator. No, it doesn't seem likely, does it? And no fingerprints, not either inside or outside the car, and yet blood left in what are obviously unusual places. The one by the ignition, there's no way his finger could have got that far. The cut on his finger. There was. It's just. It's as Robert would say, it's ludicrous, but I think he's still looking for that word. Anyway, getting back to Robert, the other thing that I challenged him about was that when Zellner produced her original motion, the 12,000 pages, she arrived at the courthouse, and then they had an interview with the reporters afterwards, and then some of the reporters went to try and speak to Robert Herman, and I challenged him about it, and he said, "Oh, did they?" I said, "Well, yes, they as the elected sheriff, your responsibility is to your public and to, and to meet these challenges head on, not to shy away from them." And he just came out with this, "Well, I can choose who I wish to speak to." I said, "Are you afraid of John Farrack?" He said, "It wasn't John Farrack, it was Alison Durr." So he clearly did know that they'd gone to speak to him, and just tried to once again fob me off with some. Well, I was going to swear then, but I won't. With some of his typical nonsense. So, where do we stand at the moment? As I say, that the lines between the two sides seems to me to be a little bit confused now. Particularly, as I say, when you've got clear evidence of shenanigans going on what you would consider to be Stephen's side, and clearly there are some people who you would think would related directly or indirectly to him that clearly have a huge amount of animosity towards him. You don't know whether it was generated by pressure, rewards, or what, but he's clearly got enemies on a few different fronts here. It's funny when one or two people ask me, "So who do you think actually did it?" Well, at the moment, with the scratches on Ryan's hands, you'd have to say that at the moment he would be the number one sort of bet for this. But there's other goings on as well that look very very suspicious. The one thing we can honestly say is that the further you dig into this mess, the clearer it becomes that Stephen had nothing to do with it. And Brendan, of course, as I say, I've never sort of done this distinction between Steve and Brendan. I know some people do. They say that Brendan is 100% innocent, as if, well, okay, so what is Stephen only 90% innocent? Well, you know, it's not a case of you can be less than 100%. You're either 0% or you're 100%. There's no sort of middle ground in this, is there? Anyway, that's all the rantings on this occasion. Hopefully, when I get back to Gala, I'll be able to do something in slightly different surroundings and slightly better attire. Until then, bye for now.